fashion industry comes with lots of glamour, comes with lots of when you are there, you feel like sort of grabbing into each fashion trend, but it's not that easy, and you have to be really mindful, careful, and understand the human psyche. Women are very unpredictable, right? And women not agree to that, right?
Sure. The behavior lens, there is always a certain level of browsing and then
Yeah.
transacting, right?
Yeah.
Because people want to keep in touch with the latest that's coming.
Sure.
So from a release of new styles online, is this something you also do on your own platform? What's the blend between data and intuition here? Because I'm sure there is a lot on both sides coming together, right?
I would say digital per se, maybe in Middle East, not as sort of developed in India,
Sure.
but they have a lot of appetite and it helps really, and of course money.
Hello and welcome to the State of Retention Marketing podcast. This is your host Ankur. I lead everything growth in marketing for WebEngage, and here's a conversation with a bunch of leaders from the product, marketing, and founder ecosystem to talk about the what, why, and how of retention marketing. We feel there's a lot of room for education in the subject of retention marketing because it's just so new. So we're actually partnering with Economic Times Brand Equity to actually bring retention into a mainstream conversation. I hope you find these conversations insightful. Thank you for the listen. Today is another interesting day for me because we're talking about fashion retail. We're talking about an industry which is the most puzzling because you're trying to always guess what women want. We have a leading fashion brand called W. It's TCNS Clothing as a group. And they have multiple brands. And we have Manasi here who heads digital marketing for the group. And we talk about everything they do on branding as well as user engagement. Thank you for doing this, Manasi. Great to have you here.
Thank you so much. And it was really good to have to be here. As you exactly said, right? Fashion industry comes with lots of glamour, comes with lots of when you are there, you feel like sort of grabbing into each fashion trend, but it's not that easy, and you have to be really mindful, careful, and understand the human psyche, especially if you're dealing with a women first brand. It is altogether a different ballgame.
I'm sure, but just to get us started, Manasi, would be very interesting to go through your journey a little bit personally.
Sure.
And how do you end up here?
It's a very interesting journey, I must say. I'm a science graduate. Okay, so I was
Okay.
pursuing my PhD, thinking that you know what, I want to change my world. I want to change the world. I was sort of doing entire research on chemical biology. And one fine day, sort of, as destiny took its turn, right? I was working in an internship with an agency, parallel, just to experiment. And that time, I remember in 2013, digital was very new, right? And I remember my mother used to ask me, "Hey, what do you do in your internship?" I said, "मैं Facebook के साथ कुछ कर." So that was the whole experience, right? Because everyone was learning digital on hand.
Sure.
And I started my journey with a digital agency, and I was working in an agency for almost 7 years. The great part happened in an agency is in 2015, I moved to Middle East. I was in Dubai. That was my turning point because that was my first interaction with the fashion brands. I worked with landmark brands, one of the leading sort of a super giant in Middle East, right?
Yeah.
And you have entire plethora of brands, right? From a home center to Max to Emax, whatever you name it, baby shop.
Sure.
So that gave me a different picture altogether, right? The fashion we pursue as a consumer versus a fashion that's been sort of sent across by a marketer has an altogether different ball game.
Sure.
So I was there for almost 4 or 5 years in Middle East, and the market was very sensitive. Market culture sensitivities were completely different. So it took me a lot of time to understand that, but that helped me to gain some bit of knowledge, right? And I would say digital per se, maybe in Middle East, not as sort of developed in India,
Sure.
but they have a lot of appetite, and it helps really, and of course money.
Of course.
So, so it helps to sort of experiment with a lot of things, right?
Hmm.
And when I came back, I joined Landmark India, which is Max Fashion,
Sure.
value fashion, right? Now the best thing about value fashion is that you work with real India, right? Bharat, as you
Bharat,
call
as you
it,
call
right?
it,
As
yeah.
you call it, right? And then you actually start thinking that, the value in fashion matters, not just the new trends, not just of course, the quality is important,
Of
but
course.
people seeking value. People are taking decision with a lot of factors together. Let's say a women consumer coming to a Mac store, if you offer something for her kid, the success rate is higher.
Sure.
If you offer something for her husband, the success rate is higher. It's a family store. It's very important, right? So Max gave me that insight that, if a woman is buying a kurti for her, she will definitely buy something for her kid. So the
Okay.
aisle strategy worked for us. When you enter, that kid section is right next to you, and there are offers going on. So it also helps, adds the main thing about the podcast. Retention is very important. Stickiness of any woman is very important, based on how, not just the value I'm bringing to her, but the value I'm bringing for her family. And that's where Max sort of sits in the bracket. And after Max, I think I was more towards understanding the ethnic wear sector, because in Indian market, ethnic wear takes around 63% of the share, right?
Okay.
And that's a huge number. We still think that Western wear is leading, but it's not, because there are so many new trends happening in the ethnic wear. You have Insta saris, where you wear a sari in 2 minutes. You have fusion wear, right? So, and nowadays, even in your office, I'm sure that people are wearing a kurtis with a denim, right?
Sure.
So ethnic wear is not going anywhere, and that's what I decided to explore this side, and I joined W, one of the leading ethnic wear brands, right? I mean, everyone has seen it, everyone has, and I can bet on this. Every single woman has one W
I'm
kurti in
sure.
her wardrobe. That's the penetration of the brand. Simultaneously, we also launched a brand called Aurelia, which is more of an aspirational brand. W is more of a settled brand for a woman who's confident, who knows what she wants, opinionated, with decent earnings and all of that. But Aurelia girl is very bubbly. She's college going, and she has a little bit of money, but wants to be maybe a glamour quotient is much much higher,
Sure.
right? And that's where we sort of have Alia Bhatt is our brand face, because that's who is an
Of course.
aspiration, right? And then we recently launched a baby brand for us, as we call it, 11. Now, another untouched vertical in fashion is bottoms wear.
Okay.
You're right. Bottom wear is a sector where no one would have thought. It's so important. It's so much. There is a dearth of bottom wear in it for women, right? And when we actually understood the sentiment, uh, I'll give a small example, right? There are a lot of women who buy kurtis, and they don't know what to do with them, because we don't have the perfect bottom wear. Now, with the changing trend, women go and buy bottom wear first, and
Sure.
then let me buy something matching to that. So that's a good trend. And I think we sort of catered each and every segment of women, starting from ethnic wear to her bottom wear to her everyday wear. And we feel that women are still a decision maker in a lot of factors, right? And fashion, you cannot take away from any women. So great to be in this industry, ever evolving, I think. But it's quite challenging, I must say that.
Of course it is. You couldn't take women away from fashion, but you could also take the experiential side of things away from fashion purchases.
Right.
And I know you mentioned the COVID period did make a massive transformation in terms of how the share of revenue that came from online began. Help us understand this. What changed from that lens that people were more open to buying online, and now that trend has not gone back. While of course the stores have opened, but there's still some people who will continue to buy online. And from that lens, when you look at digital marketing as a subject, or everything to do with acquisition as well as retention, how does the lens look for driving offline business and online business both, and how does this interplay work?
Right. So I think COVID was a altogether complete learning game for each marketer, I must say, right? Because no one would have expected the shift in everyone's shopping behavior, right? I mean, people still prefer. I mean, if you given an option, people still prefer working from home, right? And that's how comfortable we are at home. So why not fashion, right? And we always, as a marketer, I believe we should think as a consumer first, right? I mean, given a choice, I prefer online buy, right? For multiple reasons. But that doesn't take away the share of likability towards the offline market. No, the overall sort of mix that we have to bring here is how to make the synergy working, right? Now, omni marketing is a very overused term. Frankly, my opinion is no one would have understood it like to the T. But but what it means is that if a consumer is coming online, that person, especially if it's a return user, that person is loyal towards your brand. Then it is easier for him or her to be present at the offline market. But the acquisition part, it's much, much tougher for the offline market now, right?
Okay.
Because People are constantly present on Instagram. People are constantly present on YouTube. They're constantly present on different OTTs. So the discovery is much, much easier with digital. So
Yeah.
how the transition now, earlier we used to have any marketer will have the, upper, middle and lower funnel, right? The kind of spends from offline to online have changed drastically,
Sure.
right? The kind of spends we used to do towards the hoarding or the or the TVs of the world and or the transits, airports, compared to that, now the spends that we are doing to digital, it's much much higher. The
Mhm.
purely reason is a discovery. So to
Sure.
answer your question, I think the both these things are important for us. But I think the digital becomes the primary channel for us to get the discovery. It's the new customer acquisition. Is
And this is at all the levels of the funnel.
all the levels of funnel, right? Uh, I mean, you have to be constantly bombarding, not bombarding, but yeah, in a way,
Being
yes.
there,
Yeah, being there. And you have to constantly tell them, hey, you are here, we are
be
here.
noticed.
Right? We noticed, we constantly tell them that there are some offers going on, there are some, value adds for you, there's a new collection, and that will not happen without an online presence.
Of
Now,
course.
offline plays as a more of a recall. It was
Mhm.
other way around, if you remember before COVID, right? It was always, you used to get SMS saying that, hey, you've seen it, but it's not that. Now you see something online, you discover it on the hoarding, saying that, acha, there is some connection, right? So overall change has happened in that lens. Second lens is, I think, people have, been pampered by choice, especially in
Of
retail,
course.
right? With the new DTC brands coming every day, it becomes very difficult for us to have the stickiness.
Sure.
In that sense, I think online becomes, the entire only becomes very important for us, right? So let's say if I go to the store and I don't find something, I should have a mechanism to tell them, it's available online and will get
Sure.
it delivered.
Yeah.
Other way around. If it's not available online, we'll tell you, hey, it's available at the nearest stores. Just walk in, we'll deliver outside. That's we have a
Deliver from the store as well.
yeah, yeah.
It's a matter of tech
Right,
stacks.
correct. So that we don't want to lose a consumer at any cost. And I think that the only experience really helps. Uh, the offline channels are still important for us because a lot of women, especially ethnic wear, if you consider, right, the fit is very important.
Of course.
The choice of, because you're spending value, right? I mean, you're spending some sort of money there, and you want to make sure that it looks good on the color, looks good on the fabric is nice. We have another brand called Visual, which I forgot mentioning. It's a premium wear brand, right? And where your average price starts from 10,000 and plus, right? That's an investment for a lot of people. In that sense, you want to wear it, you want to see it. There are a lot of designer collections which are there.
Sure.
That you will never have it online. So that is something.
Right. Won't most of these active online shoppers being spoiled by a bunch of online international brands, which will let you order 10 things, you'll try everything at the ease of your
Correct.
home, experience them as much as you want to, and you'll probably return 8 out of the 10 things, and that's fine. Is that something as a pattern you're saying?
That's very subjective, to be
Yeah.
honest. And we also did a lot of, as a brand, we always keep on doing some case studies. We also keep doing on surveys to understand the behavior pattern, right? Now, the challenge with online is a lot of people don't have a quick trust,
Sure.
right, on the brand. Especially if a brand you have purchased offline, it's easy to get the trust.
Okay.
Right? That's one. Secondly, a lot of women, especially, and we cater women also from the age of, let's say, 40 to 45, right? Or 40 to 50. Those women are not comfortable. Hey, yaar, मैं खरीदूंगी, वापस मुझे return करने में पड़ेगा. Who will go
It'll
through
be
all
hard.
this headache and a
Sure.
cycle? Rather, I'll go to the store, purchase what I want, and come back. Where a one day thing, I just is the gross deal for me. I think millennials and Gen Z are still going towards the online more than millennials. I think Gen Z, millennials are somewhere in between. But there are a lot of people still prefer offline for the same reason. They don't want any hassle. They want a hassle-free sort of shopping. Also, shopping in India is also an experience, right?
course.
I mean, you plan a weekend with your family saying that, yaar, mall jaate, movie देखेंगे उसके बाद shopping करेंगे. And why not? And if you know that, hey, these are two brands I'm aware of, I want to purchase, I mean, there are lesser chances of doing window shopping, right? You go there, purchase, and leave. So in that sense, experience of family being together is created with the offline shopping, which you cannot. It's a online shopping is very personalized in a very your space environment sort of setup. Where offline you get to spend time with your kids, with your family, do shopping, spend your weekend, come back.
Sure.
That's how it is.
So I would imagine there'll be a degree of overlap between, there'll be some pure online, some pure offline, a large number of overlapping folks, which you're doing a little bit here, a little bit there as
Sure.
well. So just to take that, the whole, we gravitated towards the idea on segments. You spoke about women between 40 to 45, and then there is Gen Z.
Correct.
As a marketer, how do you break your audience down? Level 1, level 2, level 3 is age bracket, demographics, tier 1, tier 2 cities, economic brackets. You already have multiple brands within your portfolio, but let's just zoom into one brand for a moment, because obviously each brand has its own set of personas. So for one brand, let's say W, what would be your lens of breaking audience down?
It has to be a mix of all. It cannot be one. Um, of course, let's say in the case of W, is more of a tier one or a metro city brand.
Sure.
Because probably of the collection that we have is more towards future, more appreciated by metro women. In terms of age, with W, we do not experiment a lot with the current trends. We sort of stay for some time, right? And that's being appreciated by women. I mean, I don't know if you go to your wife and you ask me, hey, if this is a W kurta, she'll be able to recognize.
Sure.
That's because this is sort of a visual, brand recognition we have created with the brand. And that can only happen if you stay for long, right? We are not a fast fashion brand. So in that sense, women who basically are more towards in the age of 25 to 45, the Metro 1 is what we consider. Now there are further, this is like a primary segment.
Sure.
Then
Because
you
when we
divide
get
it
to that, when you have to
further.
put a hoarding in the city, this is probably enough definition to say, okay, I'm going to
Correct.
do my messaging like that.
Correct.
But in the digital world, you can do a lot more.
Correct.
So what are those lenses?
I think in digital world, I mean, the best part of digital world is the A/B testing, right? You do
Sure.
something, you fail, you change, you optimize,
Mm.
right? So we can do the lens can be a little broader there. What we first start with, have launching entire collection, right?
Sure.
And then city wise, we sort of understand the data.
Mm.
I'll tell you a very, an example that we actually sort of understood from the data is that a North Indian women versus a South Indian women and how they prefer different styles, right?
Sure.
North Indian women prefer a shorter length versus a longer deep neck, while
Mm.
South Indian women prefer a longer sleeves and a
Sure.
clothes sort of
Yeah,
thing. And
yeah.
then we sort of segment those garments also in those markets,
Mm.
right? We go further. We sort of also have collection which is like effortless, where you don't have to think much. They are good for your office wear. They're good for your, evening wear. They're good to wear for some small pujas and all of that. So then we have a very niche sort of a categories for them, for the loyal consumers, where we know that these are people looking for those sort of collection. And then we have this entire experimental range, right? And which we target towards more of our millennials or towards Gen Z. And then we use it, let's say, Snapchat or Insta filters to make sure that those audience gets captured. So I think a filter also starts from the product level,
Sure.
not just the age or a metro level. By now we are 22 years old brand, right? So by now we understood how the cities function, how the region functions, and
What's the blend between data and intuition here? Because I'm sure there is a lot on both sides coming together, right?
Very interesting question. I would say a blend would be 60-40. Because to be really honest, and I would say 60 is intuition.
Sure.
Right. And women are very unpredictable. Right. And women not agree to that, right?
Sure.
And that is, some of the collections we think that, oh my God, this is going to be a major hit. And it fails. It miserably fails, right? And you have to then analyze what went wrong, right? I'll give an example that one of the interesting things we did in our office is that we just asked women that you tell us 1 year back what was like your wardrobe used to look like and what it looks like now.
Sure.
And very interestingly, a lot of women said, in 2018 or 19, I had a lot of bright colors, yellow, blues. Now I moved toward pastels.
Okay.
No one could see it happening, but we could see it happening that a lot of new shades are coming into picture. A lot of people are getting exposed to the Western market.
Yeah.
Those sort of shade cards and coming in India, right? I mean, you see Alia Bhatt wearing a nude lipstick and then suddenly becomes a trend, right?
Sure.
Reason being people are going towards more minimalistic. And we could see that coming. So that minimalistic approach, then we started getting into our designs, right? So, but if a data says, if I just go by data says that if people prefer a bright garments with the bold designs, with a lot of ornaments and all of that. So I have to do a mix of both. But I say with fashion, a lot of research, more than intuition, I think research, and keeping the trends on Western markets. It's very important for us, even for the ethnic wear.
So Western trends for ethnic wear. That's an interesting blend.
Yeah.
So, just again zooming into this whole data driven decision making approach to it. And of course, there's going to be a layer of intuition. The reason I asked this segment question is because digital world allows you the opportunity to communicate with a Aurelia candidate or maybe just a younger college student kind of candidate very differently from how you'd communicate to a 45-year-old,
Yeah.
probably a working person.
Yeah.
So from that lens, as a marketer, when you start to sit down, okay, this is how I'm going to allocate my spends, my budgets, perhaps my forecasted revenues and some of those components, how do you break this down? Because, it's a large world out there and
Correct.
you're not putting a hoarding in a city. You can do a very different ad to this person versus to this person. How does that work?
So for us, I think we primarily know the kind of mix that we have in audience for W and Media, right? There is a basic understanding of the TG, right?
Mhm.
Of course, there is an overlap of the TG. I think the communication differs in the line of the price point. Let's say for Aurelia, the whole purpose of launching Aurelia is making it affordable or
Sure.
making it sort of easy access to women, right?
Hmm.
And that's where a conversation on price points gets important with Aurelia, right?
Fair.
That's one part. Secondly, it was our conscious choice to launch a brand face for Aurelia versus a W, right? Because for two reasons. One is the personality of brand is talking to the younger generation.
Hmm.
If we're talking to the younger generation, the brand face resonance should be there, and that's where a brand ambassador it was required, pretty much
Sure.
required, right? But W itself had a good awareness about the brand,
Hmm.
and the establishment is there. Third thing is how we talk to them is also differs. When I say talk to them, right, right from the messaging, right from the communication, right from the timings, right? I mean, we have done a micro analysis to an extent that we know that Aurelia's audience is actually to what timing versus a W audience, right?
Sure.
And also to the channel that we use, of course, right?
Hmm.
W is more towards Facebook. Sorry, Aurelia is more towards Facebook. I will tell you why, because we have a lot of tier two
Hmm.
audience there, right? And then for W, we have more to move towards more LinkedIn. LinkedIn, we approach a lot of HRs, right? Because
Okay.
we have also this entire gifting exercises were happening, and then
Sure.
corporates come and tell us,
Hmm.
what this Diwali sort of thing is happening, and we want to collaborate with you. And that's a W audience for us, right? So for us, it's not just a communication to separate the overlap. I think it's the channels,
Sure.
it's the timing, it's the collection that we talk about, and it's the strategy of the way brand is perceived, right? I mean, we never thought launching a celebrity for W, right? And by Aurelia, we always had this vision. For Alia, we had Disha. So that's how we thought that would be how we want to perceive with the brand.
Fair enough. What's the nature of customer data that you would have available for, let's say, a W customer? Do you ask for demographics or is this purely their transaction information and maybe the contact details?
Uh, so it's very difficult to get all the data from the consumer, right?
Once.
More you ask, more they walk away. You have to smartly get the data. Pure play, you get the transaction value and the number. You do not get the demographic. You do not understand their age, their marital status, nothing, right? Then you have to pay smart because you also have to retain them in a smarter way that only data can help. Let's say tomorrow I want to launch a loyalty program, right? And I don't know anything about their age or their marital status. I will not able to sort of create any communication. So then you have to do smartly, right? Maybe, and that's where WhatsApp comes in. I think WhatsApp has been a very interesting tool for us
Mhm.
because if you see, WhatsApp is never transactional, right? WhatsApp is more towards getting to know your consumer better, right? So we sort of have a lot of conversations happening on WhatsApp. We sort of get a lot of interaction going, right? And that's where
Sure.
you start capturing data. So
Okay.
you capture, let's say, for example, if I tell you, what, there is Raksha coming up and we have a perfect recommendation for your sister. And you know what, just play this game and maybe that becomes hers and you don't pay
Hmm.
anything. And then you start the journey with us. I'll start getting the data collected, right? So for now, we are just playing with the phone numbers, but
Hmm.
overall, our vision as a company is to get more insight without making consumer or customer uncomfortable. We can't sort of enter in their privacy section, right? We
Plus.
have to be very careful. We should be very cautious. Otherwise, it takes a minute for your consumer to become your ex-consumer. So you have to be real. The other challenge with loyalty, well, I mean, just to sort of take the discussion forward, is a lot of brands are there out of loyalty, but you will see only few being successful.
Sure.
Right? Because the pure reason is you don't see a value in loyalty. Sometimes you say, "Arey, itne se points मिल जाएंगे यार, उसमें क्या है?" Uh, we have studied a lot of brands, right? International and Indian brands. Some of them are, I mean, they have a mind-blowing strategy with the loyalty programs. One of the interesting brand I have came across is not related exactly to our field, but Royal Enfield, right? RE. They have a wonderful loyalty program, right? And
Okay.
I'll tell you why. Okay, they will not tell you, and they have a paid loyalty program, so they make you pay for the loyalty program, which is very rare. But the kind of the benefits that you get, if you have a bike, you're gonna need an accessory, you're gonna need the upgrades, gonna need the club memberships and all those things. So they will make your experience work. They will not tell you, "Hey, come buy with me again." They will tell you, "Hey, you purchased a bike. Now we'll tell you how to make sure you enjoy."
Sure.
Right? Same with Nike. I think Nike has brilliant loyalty programs. They will not just tell you to buy, they will tell you how to be fit. They launch the fitness programs.
Sure.
They'll collaborate with fitness influencers. They will tell you, you know what, if you buy these gears, this would be your pointers. And it becomes important for you to reach a certain level. I have a lot of friends who say that they are like the silver medal. Yeah. I mean, that's the loyalty for you, right? When you sort of start, your loyalty becomes a primary pro. Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, somewhere both the examples you gave seem to be slightly higher involvement categories. And I don't know if you're able to see your category in the same light or the level of attention that somebody would give to the choice of, clothing in some sense. And within that lens of loyalty, whether it's about having points or a community effort or any other kind of incentivization to stay to your brand, have you considered any of these approaches? Have you seen anything work for you?
Yes, we have. I think one of the things we miss is we always think that incentivization of the consumer is the key. In my opinion, it's no, right?
Sure.
I think the when do you consider a consumer's or any loyalty program is working, and when a consumer is the success rate. When I say success rate, the experience of the consumer is fulfilling.
Sure.
Right? I'll tell you an example of IKEA, right? Now, IKEA will give you some pieces of furniture, right? But it is not a furniture. You have to make it a furniture. So then they will tell you how to create those blocks into a furniture. And they have this entire loyalty program, which sort of helps you actually build in with the experiential website, create this into a furniture. What it means is that your consumer will not be happy until he sees the success at the end. Now, when it comes to coming to my industry, right? I know for a fact that a woman is going to purchase XYZ, but she's thoroughly confused, right?
Sure.
What to do with that? Because most of the women don't know how to sort of create the entire look. But if I create something from like shop the look, you know what? You become the part of my loyalty program, and I'll help you to create the entire look,
Sure.
right? I'll consult you, right? Then a lot of women, let's say you have a first interview, you are going and meeting your group's family for the first time, right? And there are a lot of occasions, women's life are very very tense, very high performance pressure sort of thing, and where you need a consultant, especially when it comes to fashion, right? And that's where we come into the picture. We say that you become a loyalty consumer and we tell you for your perfect day. Could be your wedding, could be your interview, could be your promotions, could be anything, could be, you going traveling across. We make sure that every occasion which is special to you, we have a perfect fashion week.
Is this a stylist driven approach or more like, I don't know,
It's
how
mix
does
of
it work?
both. It's a mix of tech driven, data driven, and stylist driven.
Okay.
We create certain looks based on the past purchase. We know that a consumer is, let's say, if she's a returning user, it's easier, of course. We create looks and we suggest her through maybe an email or
And
through.
this is going in the domain of your web
Correct.
kind of play, right?
Correct.
Because that's kind of where you have the largest
Correct.
opportunity.
Correct.
So how large is your own website for you? Let's just talk about W maybe in terms of the percentage contribution to revenue.
I think we are, before COVID, we were around 15% to the contribution coming from the website, which slowly turning to 25, 30. Lots of efforts have gone in it. A lot of inventory and logistics changes we made, which is very much important. I think a lot of experiential changes we made in the website. Website getting personalized is something that is very well working for us.
Sure.
I'll give an example. Let's say if I know that what sort of categories I've searched before, and when you enter the website, I will show those categories up
Of course.
on the row. It sort of helps me, right?
Yeah.
Secondly, I know that I lost a consumer to a particular product, right? So I will sort of play with the product in such a way that I'll show more variety. I show matching garments. I show the look. So that way, I'm kind of creating. I'm making sure that consumer doesn't have to take a lot of efforts. He or she can make the decision quicker. I think that's a personalization. Coming to the personalization part, I think personalization of the website is what we are working on.
Sure.
It's really helping us out. We are also launching ourselves. We are already present in international markets, right? So we are present in 9 markets, including USA, Canada, Australia, right? I mean, Indians everywhere. So I do not tap on them, right?
Yeah.
And to our surprise, our international market is working really well. Especially in the festivity zone, right? Where I think they celebrate festivals more than us. So, right, they need to have Indian clothes, which we don't get easily, right? So that's where we come in the picture. We deliver it on time. We have logistics sorted out the logistics. So I think international expansion is something that's really working for us. So
Interesting. I'm going to double click on this whole web-led play for now, simply because that becomes very straightforward to understand the play with data. You might be collecting pretty much every click stream, what sizes I chose, what categories I spent time on, what color schemes I was preferring.
correct.
And that can suddenly translate into a lot of very data-driven personalized communication and engagements subsequently. So from that lens, what are the current top things you're doing? You mentioned about web personalization, but would this also translate into a lot of downstream communication? You talked about what I browsed, but you'll also have a lot of transaction history,
Correct.
price points, colors, this and that. Tell us a little bit more about what all do you capture and how does that manifest into engagement subsequently?
Right. So one of the major KPIs that we had in last 2 years, majorly last 1 year, is to increase the retention rate and the stickiness, right? Because uh, the efforts we put from a new consumer versus the returning users is huge difference, right? And especially in the fashion industry, uh, you will not make a decision in first go, right? So you have to put a lot of effort to convert the consumer into a final consumer compared to, let's say, electronics, where you know that you want to buy an X number of X phone or whatever, right? In that sense, we started capturing more data pointers. When I say data pointers, we started measuring the number of clicks that person is doing towards finally making the journey. We started measuring first click attribution, last click attribution. We started sort of measuring the data channel by channel, right? Our first strategy was to sort of spend, I will not call it mindlessly, but to sort of go with a large number of spends on the upper funnel, right? We changed the strategy. We made sure that upper funnel, it's okay if I don't have a reach, right? But I have to make sure the middle funnel and final conversion, it's greater. So I think we work a lot on add to cart per se, right? Because
Sure.
that's very important metrics for me to making sure that people are at least putting the products in add to cart, and I'll also get to know more data points from them, right? And then the final conversion. When it comes to final conversion, we started capturing we started bucketing the consumers into AOVs, what sort of AOVs they prefer. Uh, we also started measuring the cross brand category mix that we have. So we also have W Beauty, which is like a cosmetic category that we have. We have a lot of makeup and beauty product. We have footwear. So we also
All
saw
within W.
within W. So it will sit in W website itself. So we also sort of started measuring that how many people from a W apparel now shifting towards a beauty or towards
So
cross
the
step.
acquisition side, you predominantly acquire by one category. Is that how you would then cross-sell them into other categories? Or is this
That is,
also sort of distributed acquisition?
see, I'll tell you honestly, the awareness for the other two categories is not as high as apparel, right?
It's also relatively recent maybe, or is it been around?
Footwear being there
Mhm.
for a while, but beauty is launched, I think, in 18,
Okay.
so 18, 19, so
Sure.
quite new. But what our sort of experience is, of course, apparel becomes a first sort of
Central
choice,
point.
and then you convert them saying that increase your AOV by also having beauty product or whatever.
Sure.
We started doing sampling exercises, right? Whenever we used to send them the apparel, just to include a beauty and
Do
say that
something with it.
use it. So sampling used to work, especially in case of beauty. I think marketplaces also played an important role for all these newer
I was going
categories
to
for
ask you
us.
that if 30%, 25% is website and there is more contribution to the marketplaces as well,
Yeah.
what does digital as an overall play now look like? Is it crossing 50% for you?
Yeah.
Wow, okay,
Yes.
that's quite
It
substantial
is.
for a
It is.
fashion
It
brand.
is. But of course, marketplaces have their own. I
Of
mean,
course, they have
yeah,
their
but of course,
structure.
yes, it is. It is. I mean, also marketplaces, we have now multiple players, right? I mean, Nike Fashion is shaping
Sure.
up, and all those players are shaping up. So, it's interesting game. It is interesting to watch. Now, good part about marketplaces, thankfully, they are little bit ready to share the data. I mean, they
Not
are.
at the customer level, but at the micro
Yes, I
levels.
mean they are okay with their DSPs and okay with some sort of running my ads on their database. I mean, of course, they want to have
Sure.
more customers on their
Yeah,
database,
yeah.
but at least makes more collaborative rather than it was more of a blind game for us. It's still
From a
better.
choice of fraud catalogs that would go to each marketplace,
Mhm.
what is the kind of science that you apply, or is this like the whole portfolio everywhere? I'm assuming not.
No, it is not. And a lot of insights that way comes from the marketplaces. So Amazon Fashion per se, I think the choice of garments that we send, right? It's very effortless. Very, as I said, effortless is one of the categories. Just to tell you, it's basically the normal kurtis, a basic nice kurti, white kurtis. White is trending amazing in Amazon. You will not
Sure.
believe it in summers or that was our hit product line. While in Mitra, you have to be very competitive because all your competitors are present there. They are bidding high. They are constantly changing their inventories. So in with Myntra, with the inventory refreshment is much
Sure.
frequent compared to Amazon. Also with Myntra, they offer a lot of other properties which quite expensive, but are like a checklist important for
Worthwhile.
a fashion brand. Yeah, you have to be present on their certain banners, on their app, app DSPs. You have to present on their footers, and you have to constantly be present because your competitors otherwise will take your share. I think one of our competitors, I'll not name it, but one of our competitors did a fabulous job on
Sure.
brand. We internally did a study of the brand and they just spent, there's 60-70% of the money on marketplaces.
Okay.
And very, very interesting. I'm just quoting the numbers that they had a sort of a traffic of 1 lakh, which went up to 5 lakhs
On the marketplaces.
from the marketplace from their own website.
So you're saying that
The
they did a
entire
great
strategy was
job in the
discovery on
marketplace
marketplaces.
and sells here. But is that something you think is a fair choice to make
For a newer brand, yes.
for
For life
mature brand
cycle,
renewals? For a mature brand?
mature brand, no. Mature brand,
Mhm.
I think, but mature brand, I think the right strategy for it is that spend wisely,
Hmm.
spend at the right time. Okay,
Sure.
they have a lot of events happening, right? But you cannot be present always there, right? You have to make a right choice, and that's where you have to ask the right question to marketplaces folks, right? Right, you're giving
Right
them
time, right
business.
choice, right timing. But that's how do you break the right?
Based on so me being present on marketplaces for past 3-4 years, right?
Sure.
And we have enough data, and I think we have enough data at the right time. We started doing it during the COVID time, where marketplaces had the most, I think, like a golden era for them,
Course.
right? So we understand that. Let's say, for example, festivities. I'll give an example. Pujo market really works well
In
on Myntra, right?
Pujo market is
The
the
Calcutta market,
Calcutta
Calcutta
thing, right?
market
Yeah.
works really well. And then we have a little more, much more, deeper details. That's what sort of garments are preferred in those markets. So we change our inventories like that. In other cases, when there are the sales, the major sales that happen on marketplaces, the chances of getting the share of voice is much lesser because there are other brands are also competing, and you have to
Course.
choose certain days. You have
Yeah.
to be present in certain days. You have to choose the right time in terms of understanding. I'm consumer. As I said that, let's say if it is W women, we know that they are from our data, from our website data, we know that she's more preferred in the evening or towards the evening. She's more active, right? Because she's after the work, she's more active towards the shopping game. Then I have to match my timings, match my position, match the product. When it comes to Nika, I think they're also experimenting and we are.
Of course.
So they're also figuring it out, but they're going good. Our contribution with Nika Fashion is also increasing as day goes. Of course, Myntra is leading, but as I said, marketplaces, as they started sharing more and more insights, it has become a better scenario for brands.
And you said that for a mature brand, it might not make sense to only look at discovery via marketplaces and a larger chunk coming
Yeah,
from here. So you would expect marketplaces to continue contributing a substantial chunk of revenue. At the same time, you would want to make sure you're investing in building your own platform
correct,
in a way that people tend to gravitate towards this.
correct.
So from a differential experience, this whole style advisory, the personalized combinations and bundles and all of that would be a part of your own website experience, which cannot be matched in a marketplace, I can imagine. So from that lens now, if it's just zooming into your own website experience, people who have come in, people who made their first transaction, firstly, does your website system know what am I buying offline? If it's the same phone number?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Something
Now
on
it's
your
a
radar?
challenge. Of course. Of
I would
course.
imagine.
Of
So
course.
then, in terms of now getting into the subsequent engagements, they have a bunch of channels to deal with. It's a visual category. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of catalog-based information that could
Yeah.
also get involved.
Yeah.
And there is, let's say, some sort of a intuitive repeat patterns that, okay, somebody
Yeah.
who's bought this will buy this
Correct.
next. And there is a interval, right, in which you're expected to buy again. But I've somehow been surprised by data when I used to work in a fashion e-commerce play at some point. So what have been your insights around the whole repeat behavior, re-engagement behavior with the website first customers, people who are on your platform?
To be really, really honest, I think we are in a very in a in a growth phase. I would say we are
Sure.
still understanding because I'll tell you, as I said, right, we started working on a website post COVID. So, but what we have understood interestingly is the return user percentage is increasing as we
Sure.
speak. That means either what we are doing is working, A, our products are working, B, or there's a certain brand loyalty which is still being there, right? Now, what we have done is when we usually sort of have this entire 6 monthly or monthly meetings, not just understanding the data, understanding what were the product preferences, right? We constantly also maintain it through our AIs and through our business intelligence, right? To understand. Now, what we have seen is there are certain value proposition works really well in our own website, right? So maybe in offline market, maybe I mean, that's very surprising fact. Actually, you're ready to spend more than compared to online because maybe your DNA or you've been trained that way. That
Is it a very
online
simple
market.
average order value is this way versus that way, average selling price is this way versus that way, different, and this is
Correct.
your
Correct.
conclusion from there?
Correct. So our overall AOV on online is lesser than the offline.
Sure.
I think that's as I said, that is we are trained in a way that online तो सस्ता ही होएगा यार. So and you are so.
The
I
involvement
I
level
have done
perhaps
it,
goes
right?
high and
I'll
you would
go
go
and check
offline.
the same product on Myntra and check whether what's the price there. I'll check the product on Ajo. So you as a consumer, you have a lot of time when you're sitting online. You
But
do a research.
as a brand, you'll always have the best price on your website over this being.
Yes, but as a consumer, you do that, right?
Sure.
So, and when you again go to marketplace, it's very difficult for you to bring you back on the website. So,
Yeah.
it's like altogether different Maya Jal when you go to marketplaces.
I'm sure.
So coming back to the AOV prices, I think you're trained in such a way. Secondly, one of the interesting facts on online is you sort of buy new styles compared to offline. Okay.
Okay.
That's an interesting fact, right? Because maybe if you don't like it, you return. Could be that hypothesis. I'm totally sort of working towards hypothesis right now because we're still in a way of
Discovery
figuring
phase.
it out.
Yeah.
Also, so the sort of the garment choices, as I said, is more towards the effortless that we have because when you're on your website, you know what you exactly want because you've been a return user. You know that these are the styles fit me well from
Yeah.
W. So you usually go from there and buy and check out, right?
Right. It's from a sorry, just to budge in a little bit over
Sure.
here. From a behavior lens, there is always a certain level of browsing and then
Yeah.
transacting, right?
Yeah.
Because people want to keep in touch with the latest that's coming.
Sure.
So from a release of new styles online, is this something you also do on your own platform?
Yeah.
And is this something that people would get to know because you're going to send them alerts that there's new arrival, whatever?
So we have a lot of capsule collections,
Yeah.
which is online exclusive.
Okay.
We constantly change the those trends. We something have called W stories, which is a capsule collection. Giving an example, if in last wedding, your entire velvet was trending really well, right? And that was a trend. Coming to the intuition part, which you asked, right? The intuition part that you spoke about, I think that was the intuition that makmal or the malmal which is the trend maybe 4 years back or 5 years back, velvet was going to come back. That was more of
Sure.
an intuition, right? And then it did happen, and we launched a very small collection because, of course, as a team, we were not confident. I mean, just to tell you the insights, that having a pure velvet collection, velvet itself is a very expensive fabric,
I'm sure.
right? So to sort of invest in such fabric in a larger scale, no, not our call. And especially when retail business itself is sort of going through a lot of ups and downs post COVID, right? So we have to spend wisely. In that sense, we launched this capsule collection called Makmal only online, right? And it has got us a really good response. I mean, to an extent that we
So this is
lost top
where
line.
it's a lot of fun to look at data and then say, okay, I have 1 million odd consumers online. This set of people are behaving in this fashion. This is behaving in this fashion. This is behaving in this fashion. And if I were to just try something out with one cohort and then see if it's working out, those things become so much easier with just purely online plays.
It's like a sample testing, right?
Absolutely. So from that lens, if you were to look at the key goals and the key KPIs you set for your online play, now of course there's this AOV booster as a possible play. There's this cross-category sales, which could be another play. There could be repeat within the same product subcategory. If it's kurtis, and can I sell you 5 more kurtis? If you bought a kurti, can I sell you a bottom? So what are the top few KPIs that you would orchestrate on your online business?
I think, as I said, that increasing the percentage of return users is something is extremely important
So
for us.
first to second order, second to third order, is that a lens you break with too, or everybody repeaters like good enough?
No, I think first to second is very important for us.
Sure.
And this is again, well, I'm quoting for it again and again because there are a lot of people which can happen.
Of course.
COVID, right? If you could convert the first to second, right, that means you have achieved you made some dent, right?
Because that's usually the biggest dip across most brands.
Correct. So that's a huge dent. That means you have made some impact. So that way, first to second is very important for us. Second to third, third to fourth, of course, the percentage will
It
drop
gets
down.
better,
So
obviously.
yeah, exactly. And the quality will increase and all of that will happen. Then you move towards more of a loyalty cycle, saying that, this consumer.
They call it the group frequency, right? I mean, once you've hit 4 orders on the website platform, it's at least said in the e-commerce industry, perhaps beauty, perhaps fashion as well, the chances that you'll repeat from then onwards is about 80-85%.
Correct.
So once somebody scrolls over to that point, it's kind of set. You can assume that they'll keep coming back.
Correct.
But the journey between 1 to 2 is where it gets super messy. So is that an interval question as well? What's a typical interval between a first and second order for you?
I mean, it's usually, see, it's a fashion is not something that puts the impulse buy. But you have to create certain occasions. When I say occasions, not like a festival occasion, you have to create some occasion for her to buy, right? So usually we see a month's time. Usually person will not come in a week's time to purchase, right? In fashion, right? A month's time is decent enough to understand. At least if that person has come on my website.
Visits at least.
Correct.
Okay.
Whether that person has purchased or not is again a secondary game. But if there is a visit happened, if there is a sort of certain scrolling of products happened, if there is add to cart happened, that means, okay, again, I have gone on another level, right? So for us, when it comes to entire retention or retention, this is the retention user strategy, it will always be, sort of a domino sort of an effect, right? From clicking to coming on the website, to scrolling to the products, to adding to the cart, and finally converting. So that takes about a month's time for us to sort of measure. Yeah.
Tell me something. Would you consider, or have you considered making user personas that this is like a fast shopper, always evenings, working days versus weekends, versus this is like a casual browser because he sees 25,000 things before she buys anything? And there are behavioral patterns, and which will probably give you some sort of a consumer personas, which you can also probably backmap using primary research, maybe, to get demographics, right? Is this something you've done, attempted, seen being useful?
No, but it is in the pipeline because there are, as I said, there are collection lines which are only for, let's say, workwear. There are collection lines only for occasions specific to, let's say, a Karwa Chauth or such occasions, right? And then we have to do all that mapping. It's work in progress. What at this moment we have is, what sort of return users was percentage of the AOV. It's an always evolving game, right? And until you deep down.
One more big question I would always love to understand, right? You have a product which is a piece of apparel, right? And you have so many different possible attributes you could attach to each product, right? It could be how in season it is. You made the mention around conservative versus modern, between the long sleeve versus the deep neck. And there are so many other variables you could attach to each product. What is the number of attributes you would have on each piece on your catalog?
I think thermal. And it also changes as per the season, right?
Sure.
I mean, and say for it, I'll give an example of spring summer, right?
Hmm.
When we sit for spring summer collection, we first understand what did work last year, right? And what were the fabrics worked last year. We also do a deep down understanding because the weather in India is so different from each and every sector,
Sure.
right? I mean, we also have kaftans, right? And which, if you send the kaftans in Chennai, people will highly
Of
sort of
course.
look at.
Hmm.
So we have to do a fabric matching in terms of where are we selling it. We go to a deep level of understanding the patterns, right?
Hmm.
I mean, you have to be very careful that Indian women are very also structured very differently in
Sure.
every region, right? So you have to create certain patterns which will complement them, uh, complement their complexions, right? Complement their occasion and regional sensitivities, as I said, right? So there are so many factors. So when we actually sit for the design, one of the first factor that we consider is which fabric, where exactly we should place it. So we actually have this nice board. We actually do a pin, and it's a very fun exercise that we do, because 60% of our employees are women, right? So we sort of do this fun exercise.
Hmm.
Which fabric to choose, which color palettes to go for, uh, which regions sort of have what affinity towards. So I think online has made this life very easy because we have so much data understanding. White and goldens are like a hit in South, for example. Like Onam, you have to have like a
Yeah.
white and golden collection.
Beginning to wonder if there's like a large bunch of data folks who are constantly looking at patterns and trends and coming up with these answers and
Absolutely,
doing this.
absolutely, right? And for example, this was one trend, and which was again very intuition based, right? People prefer long sleeve, but people also prefer short.
Sure.
So we created a garment which called a fairy tale
Detachable.
sleeves, right? Where you have mix of both. So
Okay.
that gives you a feeling of your modern women, but still have conservative values.
So this
So
is where it gets again very interesting from the lens that there's a lot of this judgment calls intuition driven. You have those women contributing to those decisions. On the other side, you now have a person who has a specific set of preferences and she might not resonate with 90% of what you do, but exactly with 10%. So the personalization of communication and the reason I was asking about the attributes, you spoke about fabric, you spoke about color patterns, you spoke about perhaps conservative versus modern.
yeah,
For each piece of apparel, you have 20 possible attributes or maybe more.
correct.
And for each individual, basis their purchase behavior, basis their browsing behavior, basis what they spend time on, you also have their preferences on that
Correct.
20 attributes. And if you were to mishmash to say that, okay, this person, Mansi here, has these 20 attributes as part of her user profile, and the set of products that are likely to resonate with her is this set because we have those attributes matching, right? And that's why if you blend this, the kind of communication that would go to a Mansi would look very different from a kind of communication that would go to anybody
Yeah.
else. And obviously, the click-through patterns and the conversion rates would look different, right? So, we've done some very overly simplified stuff in terms of sizes because in fashion, you'll always have some mainstream sizes and some edge sizes, and you'll always have lesser inventory for the edge sizes, but they might still get left over at the end of the year, and you have to get rid of them. But there's no point bombarding everybody with that sale that are putting the stuff on 70% off.
Correct.
So if you have a set of audiences which are, they filtered that size 7 before, and you would just sell a communication only to them that size 7 is on sale, you don't have to bombard the rest of them.
Absolutely.
And likewise, you have new arrivals and maybe Karwa Chauth, and might be great in some parts of geographies, but might not be in some other parts of. And geography is just one lens, but I might have browsed Karwa Chauth before,
Correct.
which tells you that I might be living in a non-Karwa Chauth city, but then I'm a Karwa Chauth customer.
Yes.
So to what extent is behavioral data capturing and translation into communication is, on a scale of 1 to 10, if you were to talk about your maturity on being able to capture, absorb, digest, and deploy all of this, how do you see this?
I think we almost are there 5 to 6, and I think I should give it to my team for this the credit. This last festive season we have around 250 different catalogs, right? And that was very sort of a important thing for us because we used to before 2018 I think we used to have 3 catalogs: light festive, heavy festive, weddings.
Sure.
Now we have 250 catalogs, right? And that's how we generate the catalogs based on occasion, based on color choices, based on bold versus pastels, based on the sizes. We have something called plus size, right? Which is altogether
doing that.
very interesting catalog.
I'm sure.
And
There were brands which are doing only that, and that became a line of business,
correct,
right?
right? So as I said, we have bottom wear, so we also sort of cross promote the
Are you
bottom
also
wear.
doing a bunch of digital only things?
I think the
Product
plus
size?
size was a digital only.
Sure.
We launched because just as I said about
So was the Makbal, right? Yeah.
correct. Just wanted to understand, and we got an immense response. And to an extent that people say that, hey, you guys make 16, which is, no other brands make it, or
Sure.
18, where no other brands makes it. And that's a huge compliment, right? And it's with the plus size, very tricky. You have to. The whole point of plus size is to make that woman look confident, comfortable, and sort of tell her that this is pretty, this is perfect for you, and that way the fitting becomes much more important for us.
Sure.
So we have for the plus size or any other sizes. Let's say, for example, even if I'm 8 or 6, or my height is different, so you have to make sure that everything is adjusted. And those customization is very much possible. We are also planning to have more customization in terms of our garment choices, more customization in terms of our fabric choices, right? I mean, I will not shy away from saying that maybe after 2-3 years, can pick up the fabric.
I want this style and I want this fabric. Make it for me. But that's very bespoke, and that becomes another animal from a operations standpoint. I won't go into that today, but from a marketing lens, or rather from a product lens, when you look at, let's say, some products which didn't do well, and you've got a terrible response or repeat rate from that, because you're talking about first to second, and you have a lot of people coming in for the first time for some products, maybe some others, because obviously your advertising is also there, and there is retargeting on the same set of products. Would you be in a position to take a stance, okay, this product is doing badly, get rid of it, do not market this further?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the whole point of having a capsule collection, right? Because you don't make it in a large inventory.
Because I remember this from a fashion e-commerce, or not fashion, beauty e-commerce company, that, there's 100K units of this stupid lipstick, which has got a terrible NPS. Throw the stock because it's damaging the brand more than it's helping the brand. Have you had situations like that?
Thankfully, no.
Not as bad.
No, it's not as that bad, but of course there are certain collections or certain patterns which don't do well. And
then that's the cost of doing business, right? I mean, somewhere you have to keep experimenting.
There are ways of doing it. You liquidate them in a different way.
In a very sharply controlled way.
Correct.
So would W still be doing, like, a lot of 50% off banners on the homepage, or are you now able to do it more controlled?
You will hardly see any banners on W. 50% off. I think there's only end of season sale, which is two hits, which basically any fashion brands will have, because you don't have a choice. Everyone. That's the cycle. But otherwise, we'll do very specific offers. Let's say you will do an offer over a bottom wear or offer, but we'll never go beyond 30%.
Sure.
That's a standard. We will, of course, offer some additional values to our loyal consumers. That's separate conversation, never happening on the website. It's more of a personalized conversation. But we want to stay away from the discounted conversation. You will hardly see any conversation happening on discount on our social media, because I think social media becomes the face of the brand, right?
Sure.
So talk about discounts, you can start thinking of the discounted brand. So we hardly do any conversation. We talk about.
But from a growth perspective, aren't you under a certain mandate to grow aggressively? And most people think of discounts as the quick hack to grow. And you're staying away from that. It
is, but I think it also damages the brand on the long term, right? So you have to pick and choose how exactly.
The fact that you're like a 20-plus-year-old brand comes sort of handy to say that we don't want to destroy it by discounting aggressively, because most other brands are a certain level of growth pressure, which if it doesn't work, they'll have existential issues, which then means they go the discounting path, and that obviously hurts sooner or later.
Okay, so then we go, vertical, horizontal in terms of categories, we launch beauty.
Sure, of course. They have their own dynamics and they have their own challenges. Beauty is now a lot more competitive than probably what it was 5 years ago.
So when I was at Manasi, I think we launched baby product, and that is one of my very dear projects, right? Because launching a baby product means if you would convince a mother about buying something for your baby, oh my God, the loyalty that she shows is next level. Because if you're offering a comfort to her baby, she'll definitely come back to you. So I think launching a baby product is one of our major strategy, not to increase the AOV, but to increase the stickiness. So there are certain products you launch to make sure that consumers come back.
So Manasi, I don't know if you realize, but we've been speaking for about an hour, and I'm just about getting started to get to understand fashion retail. Obviously, it's a subject you're pretty much a master now in. But unfortunately, thanks to the amount of time we're left with, I'm going to get with one closing question, which is, what's your one key message to fashion retailers trying to do a better job at their own web platforms?
I think have a clear vision. Have a clear vision. How do you want to shape up your brand?
Yeah.
Do not copy because X brand is doing something, B brand is doing for you. Have a clear vision. If you want to build a value brand, build like that. If you want to build a sustainable brand, be that. have a clear vision of your entire journey. That's one. Secondly, do not shy away from experimentation. I think fashion itself, the integral part is to you need to experiment. When I say experiment, not with the garments, with everything,
Sure.
right? Of course, you assign the budgets carefully, but experiment with the things. That's the second thing. And third thing, I would say definitely, if you don't have your online presence, your journey will stop, right? So you really have to decide. My suggestion is go online first, understand. As you exactly said, the consumer understanding that you get online is way much deeper and higher. So go online first. Be present on marketplaces. It's okay if you have to spend money, but the discovery and the kind of insights you start having it will help you a lot. A lot of fashion brands will not give you this advice that, hey, our marketplace is taking so much shares from us, but that's not our experience. Our experience is you have to work very collaboratively with them. And then, and I think the last thing is, I would say that is always think of your consumer first. Do not go with the trend, or because this X brand is doing so well, let's launch a new collection.
Sure.
We have done that and we have failed miserably. So always intuition is very important. So I think work.
Probably just one more opportunity for the last, but slightly more personal question. You were a digital native, so to speak, because you started out in that journey pretty early. A bunch of marketers in a fashion retail ecosystem don't necessarily see life in digital first ways, right? What's your advice for them to become digitally savvy in a relatively fast fashion?
Don't be scared. Yeah, because sometimes I think I don't know, with certain experience and age, you sort of getting with any new thing coming in the market, you have this entire fear of not understanding, not getting or anything. You just have to, once you start understanding digital, it will blow your mind. So I think start small, start with basic platforms, but you have to keep on learning, and you don't need to be scared, and I'm telling this my personal experience with the folks that I work with, right? Yeah, digital to make that. You have to make an attempt, right? I don't understand maybe the virtual merchandise as deeper as them, but understand if we sort of share the knowledge, it will never help. And what I used to learn or what I used to do in maybe even 2 years back, it doesn't hold any sort of, you always have to evolve. So that way I'm also learning. So sort of always in a journey.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this, Manasi. I do believe I have 50 more questions left, but we'll probably leave it for another time.
Thank you so much. And it was, I didn't realize it was only 1 hour. It was very great to be here and be in a conversation. I think we'll sort of
We'll have follow-ups.
eventually. Yes, of course.
Certainly. So, well, fashion retail is complex, and fashion e-commerce can be even more complex if you were to really go the whole 9 yards on figuring out the amount of data it takes to do a good job in personalization. There is no way a women fashion business can work without intuition, and that's where somebody like Manasi, who comes from a digital marketing background, but is willing to put intuition in its place as well to give it the fair bit of share in her decision making. It's a very interesting journey that they've had so far, and we wish them all the best.